either of them will definitely be looking to get that 2-in-1 on their ledger after this is all said and done.
Yeah, it's a really pivotal point in the tournament for a lot of runners. They have to kind of carve their path towards, getting to round 5 and 2, or possibly even 4 and 3 if things work out favorably. But generally speaking, though, our runners want to, stay as far ahead of that bubble as possible.
Absolutely. Game 3, a critical game in any 7-game set. And we have an early Light World check. We have a red crystal at Eastern Palace, 2 non-green pendants at Hera and Desert. I believe those are vanilla pendants, by the way. We have who42baker and Mijati will be making their way to see what weapon these runners will be granted to start off this seed.
I'm hoping for bow. Ooh.
The Cane of Samaria will be our starting weapon for our runners. We can see if we can see some creative uses of this weapon here. We see who42baker trying to get the first 2 guards there. We'll be likely getting the magic pots as well.
Yeah, it'll be big for these runners with the Cane of Samaria to try to judiciously use it so that they don't, miss a bomb drop. A bomb drop being a huge thing here in Escape.
Yep, and red items to start here with a big 20 there in the sewer chest there. Yeah, Cane of Samaria makes it very interesting to your farming strategies here, because you should have plenty of shots to work with to get some farming in to hopefully find that much desired early bomb drop to get the sewers out of the way.
And of course, our runners will likely find some magic drops if they don't find bomb drops, or at least they have a pretty decent shot of it. So, it's not the worst weapon to use, although I imagine they're going to try to use pots wherever they can.
And we see who42baker doing just that, refilling his health and taking his aggressions out on a green guard. Unfortunately, that green guard did not have anything to provide him, and we see these runners now taking out the blue guard and getting a secondary small key along with the 1 drop by the guard itself.
Yep, so in Escape, not a whole lot of items to work with, I believe. It's 2 in the front half and 3 in the back half, right? Or with the bombable wall.
I believe that is correct. We have the small key out of the way. We'll see if we can get the map out of the way, which will mean the Sanctuary chest will be a live check as well. But we'll see what comes up here.
Yeah, so that is one thing. Some runners will be able to save literally 3 seconds by, routing with understanding of where their, Sanctuary chest item might be. Looks like we did get a bomb drop for who42.
Yep. So right now, who42baker is slightly ahead in the bomb situation. We'll see if Mijati can't equalize or get ahead with a fortunate drop here. But who42 has his bomb. We'll see if he decides to try to get a little bit more, or will be satisfied with just that singular explosive.
I have to think, though, that here in the basement, throwing pots around is going to be faster than using Cane of Samaria in every situation.
Absolutely.
Although Mijati does pretty well with it.
Getting a little too ambitious there. Got to get that big key first, and he does, and gets the red rupee, and who42baker will be right behind him doing just the same.
Well, 40 and 46 rupees respectively. Our runners have a fairly decent bank walking through Escape. Big thing is to get at least 100.
Absolutely. The more the merrier in the early game, so you can get the bottle merchant and possibly a bomb refill at Kakariko, depending on how the bomb situation is in the next few minutes.
Well, not a whole lot to talk about on the way back up, facing pretty much the same guard RNG. We already have 1 bomb for who42baker, so I can't imagine that he's actually killing a lot of enemies, particularly in the back half. Mijati, though, will probably spend a little more time on that.
Yeah, who42baker is a little bit lower in the magic count as well, so he doesn't have a whole lot to work with, but just needs the slightest bit to take care of the 1 remaining rat. We'll see if Mijati maybe spends some time killing some additional snakes, possibly, with the Samaria on his way to the back half of the sewers.
And, interestingly enough, we had a little bit of a lead change in Escape here, just from who42 deciding to, farm a couple of extra enemies. I'm not sure exactly what he's looking for. He might be looking for more rupees above all else, because he definitely has his bomb. Then again, you could always get an 8-stack.
Yeah, and he may just be looking for an additional bomb, just to give him the ability to go a smoother Kakariko clearance. But we'll see if he decides to continue farming or if he's going to just accept that. We do have Mijati. He is going to exterminate some of these snakes here in the hopes of finding a bomb. Gets a fairy and a small magic pot and a heart, but it looks like that's going to do it. He is going to get and he does go down the stairs before killing that final snake.
Yeah, those aren't bad drops. They're just not the drops we want.
Speaking of drops you want, there's the mirror in the sewers. That'll offer some additional Dark World checks there, assuming we can get there at some point.
And it's absolutely fantastic to have the mirror long before we ever have to go into any dungeon. Routing just became so much simpler for most of the seed.
Looks like Mijati is going to take the time to collect a small magic pot just to gain some insurance to make sure he can get out of here without any additional difficulties here. We have who42baker is through, though, and will be definitely using his singular bomb to get these 3 chests cleared. Mijati will not have the benefit of checking these 3 locations, so that we'll see how much that comes to pass. We do have the flute, a bottle, and a sword, so huge payout there in that left sewer area. Huge.
Holy smokes. And, this is something I encountered in the race myself, and I'm sure a lot of runners in this tournament have. If you don't have that bomb, sometimes, it's kind of hard to get back to where you're going to have access to it. I mean, maybe the power glove's locked behind flute somehow. If it is, Mijati's in trouble here.
Absolutely. who42baker is going to have a significant amount of time with the flute at his disposal. So depending on how long it takes for Mijati to find some gloves and bombs, that could spell a huge advantage for who42baker. And we do have both runners checking the sanctuary chest, neither runner realizing that they had not collected the map and could have effectively saved those 3 seconds. But that since both runners did it, it's neither here nor there.
So is that where we say shout outs to sanctuary map?
Shout outs to Sanctuary Map, indeed. And we have Mijati without a bombs, electing to go ahead and go southward here towards Lake Hylia.
Yeah, picking up a bomb purchase that a lot of people aren't actually familiar with. That's an easy one to forget, but it's very handy if you're going to just, pick up bombs and do nothing else in Kakariko. Or at least if you want to go to, say, Mini Moldorm Cave, which I think he may actually be trying to do.
Myself included, as far as forgetting that particular location. We have who42baker now on the way to the Lumberjack Ledge. He did check the loot spider. It was giving away some arrows. It looks like we just have some bombs on the ledge. So right now, the Aga watch is currently deactivated.
Certainly much less prioritized at this point. The only exception may be for some Dark World access, but at this point, that's currently not on the radar.
So while who42baker is going to check the 2 locations in the Lost Woods, we have Mijati checking the 2 locations in the dam. It looks like there was 20 rupees in that first chest. Using the mirror to get these done in 1 trip, we have a heart container in the mushroom spot.
Well, we're going to get, quite a lot of things to look at all at once. I mean, dam not being very much profit here. The heart's definitely welcome, but an ether medallion in the Lost Woods, that's interesting. But we don't know what that's going to mean for us just yet.
Yep, there's only going to be 1 pendant in the Dark World, so a decent chance that we guaranteed to have at least 1 medallion required, very likely to be 2. who42 getting some hearts from that tree pull there, while Mijati is on his way to the Mini Moldorm Cave.
Yeah, just to explain kind of what those, pulls are on the trees. You can give 3 different tiers of pulls from a tree. In the vanilla game, it's rupee amounts. But in this, it's if you kill 1 enemy or at least 1 enemy and pull the tree, you'll get the first tier. If you kill 4 enemies and take damage, you'll get the second tier. If you kill 4 without taking damage, you get the third tier. So our runners may actually end up revisiting those trees later, but for now, nothing too valuable.
And while who42baker is activating the flute, we have Mijati collecting 100 rupees, another heart container, a arrow upgrade, capacity upgrade that is, a piece of heart, and the silver arrows. So that is a pretty major find there for Mijati. I imagine that who42baker will be collecting that in due time, but that is, for now, one of the things Mijati has up on who42baker.
Well, it is good to get a bunch of these hearts. We haven't seen any kind of mail upgrade. We don't have a lot of security with our weapons. And so if we want to... Mijati's got to be careful here. Those crabs do 2 hearts of damage.
who42baker getting a small piece of love from the sick kid. He would have preferred to get some rupees as he was farming to get some bombs and was not getting any from any of the green guards north of the village. Gets the cane of Berna there out of the tavern, but who42baker is really needing some bombs right now and or rupees.
Yeah, as we saw in the other shop, they cost 50 to buy 10 of them. There are cheaper bombs for your value in the Dark World, but we're definitely not there yet. We'll get an Ice Rock Cave check, and interestingly enough, who42 will actually use this unmarked hut to try and grab some bombs.
Shades of open mode here, as there are guaranteed 4 bombs every time you enter this hut. And there is 300 rupees for Mijati out of the Ice Rod Cave.
Well, so that's definitely a good find, although certainly not the progression that we're looking for, but this is going to put Zora a lot closer to where we are now. He may end up fake flippering here because, he's going to do his south side check. Yeah, I mean, either that or, a Guinness Cave.
Looking like a desert check early for Mijati. And yeah, Mijati is definitely, we know that he is really wanting some gloves right now to get back to those sewer chests. A lot there for him.
Yeah, you really don't want to be in a sewer without wearing some gloves.
And we have a Chevelle for who42baker. Let's see how quickly he routes that in with that shovel check. Having some difficulty getting out, but he gets out of the chicken hut and will be on to further locations here. Now that he has bombs, he can now check the well and Blind's hideout.
He definitely has reasons to go south with this, going to check the race game, of course, and to see what's in the library. So that would be a good time to come back around, although may opt to do it later if he has a mirror at the right time in the Dark World, you know what I mean?
I certainly do. Let's see what Agina has while we have a blind hideout check. Agina has a glove, so I imagine he is immediately on his way to the sewers here, while who42baker is picking up a mail upgrade, 20 rupees, make that 21 rupees, and make that 41 rupees.
Thieves' Hut is Hut of Corrections. Maybe it's a correctional facility, I don't know, but Bombos as well, wow.
That's 2/3 of the medallion trio right there in the 12th minute here for who42baker. Meanwhile, Mijati is on his way towards the south side of Kakariko, it looks like.
Yeah, and the other interesting thing about that is we do have sword access, so that Bombos could potentially at some point lead us into Ice Palace before Fire Rod.
That is certainly live for sure. Meanwhile, who42 is now going to check the well now that he has the means of collecting everything with the bomb and gets yet another 20 rupees. And let's see what he gets out of the backside of this well here after collecting these 10 rupees up in the front. It is another arrow capacity upgrade.
Looked like a race game was nothing important, but wow, Moon Pearl.
Shield and a piece of art, less exciting, but wow, who42baker just swimming in progression items right now.
Yeah, so left side's really only missing, either Titan's Mitts or bow.
Sure, let's throw in a bow. Why not?
Wow.
And with the silver arrows in Mini Moldorn Cave, who42baker is going to be swimming pretty with silver arrows, the mirror, Moon Pearl, all within about 15 to 16 minutes.
Well, so there's definitely the chance at a very fast seed, but I gotta think, games like this, or at least this randomizer in version 29, does not give us a lot of things for free without making us pay for it later. So I'm curious to see how this is going to unfold.
I did not catch the library. If any eagle-eyed viewers in chat happen to catch it, I would appreciate that. But in any case, who42baker is going to also now check the race, and I imagine will be on his way to the dam locations.
Yeah, Big 20, definitely not much value there. And not only that, but, the bomb you'd have to spend to get it, it's almost not even worth it on that level.
Baker, realizing that he has the shovel, so elects to not take the ride, and will go ahead and get this out of the way en route to South Light World.
Well, moment of truth. Let's see if we can get it in one dig. Ooh, 5 rupees. That's not exactly a good find. So fetch quest early on proving to be very useless.
And it looks like who42 is going to go ahead and take this bow and just rush to Eastern Palace in Sahasraro, it appears. Might regret that and see once he learns where those silver arrows are, but I can't really blame him at this point.
Certainly not. And, there are a lot of arrow drops available in Eastern Palace. So if it really comes down to that, the quick kill shouldn't hurt too much. Although it is so much better with the silver arrows.
Yeah, and absolutely. With the Eastern Palace being a red crystal, I certainly can understand who 42baker wanting to get it done as quickly as possible for potential Fat Fairy location checks later on down the line.
Wow, that's another glove. So Titan's Mitts is on the table right now.
It most certainly is.
Well, that's gosh, that's a ton of progression really fast. I mean, we're 15 minutes in.
Yep, really at this point, no point in complaining. But really, the hammer is really one of the main hammer and hook shot are the big things they would be missing at this point. I mean, but after only 15 minutes, this is quite a huge haul.
Yeah, if we can find either of those items, Aghanim becomes completely irrelevant. So that is welcome news for our runners. I mean, in the back of their minds, they got to be thinking, great, I don't got to worry about that. But there's still possibility of troll here.
Oh, until you walk into that Triforce room, there's always a possibility of troll in this randomizer. Let me tell you, who42 is going to start his completion of Eastern Palace. They're going to check this first location here. Let's see what we have. It is the big key, so that they can quickly check the big key en route to any of the other locations.
It's always nice to find that big key in the first half before you get to the big chest, for natural reasons. The only other way we can make this dungeon much faster is if who42 remembered those silvers, and more importantly, if we had the hook shot here, but that's only going to save us about one screen.
Yep, we'll see if the next 3 items happen to be the 3 item locations. Otherwise, a full clear may be in order here. We've got who42 here about to check the eastern location, and it is a map, so it looks like they will need to full clear the whole thing if they want to be absolutely safe and not make any gambles.
Yeah, speaking of not making any gambles, Mijati making sure that, that lumberjack is not something that you don't want to find. Finding one glove, probably makes sense to check that, although with the second one, we might not have even bothered. But chat's raising the point, though. Agina's is really out of the way. It's not something that people are likely to check until they've really run out of progression, and it might be a while before we get to a point where Titan's Mitts is the only thing we need.
Absolutely. Usually Agony tends to be checked around the time you are routing your Desert Palace check-in. And with Desert Palace being a pendant, I can't see that really being a huge priority for these guys at this point. So Mijati is going to be going up to Death Mountain in the dark without a sword to be able to guide him. He's really depending on his shovel to be the guiding light here.
Not too commonly seen, but it does clink on just about everything that Link is walking into. So, very handy, good tool to use here.
Meanwhile, who42 and his little sword glint there will guide him there. But Mijati having no trouble in getting a fire rod from the old man. That is a decent little pickup there.
I dig that. Wow, that's a crazy thing for him to find. Just shoveling his way through all of this, sequence breaking.
I'm sure Mijati digs that too, seeing that that's pretty much all he has to guide him in the dark at the moment, although that fire rod, once he gets magic, could also do the same. Let's see what we have in Spectacle Rock for Mijati here, and it is a set of 20 rupees. Let's see what's inside the cave while who42baker gets his own 20 rupees out of the vanilla big key chest.
Well, it doesn't look like he's going to break ground with that one, although with the mirror accessible and Moon Pearl, I mean, Hera is a check that we can make, and we do have a fire source.
Yep, it is yet another pendant, but it is there, so certainly wouldn't blame him for wanting to check it while he's up here. Death Mountain, it's a little bit out of the way, especially when you don't have the flute, which who42baker does have. But you definitely want to collaborate all of the possible checks while you're taking the time to make it up here. So I certainly understand Mijati going ahead and checking out Tower of Hera.
Well, Tower of Hera usually not a big time sink, but it wouldn't be unforeseeable for somebody to have a fall or two. So we're hoping that things move smoothly for Mijati here. who42baker has died with a fairy. I'm not sure if that was an attempt at a death warp. I didn't catch that, but that fairy coming in clutch.
Looks like he's trying to navigate this room in the dark and falling at least once here. Let's see if he can clutch it out.
Well, I can't see much besides a D in the dark, but it looks like he was able to pick up that key, so he should be able to get through this room.
It looks like Mijati is relegated to the basement to progress in this dungeon, and Mijati is not deterred by that. It is going to go ahead and take the time to do this.
Yeah, in these early spheres of logic, I mean, I could see why, runners would not want to ignore, hey, I was just given all the items I needed to come here. It kind of makes sense. Sometimes that can bite you in the back, though. I mean, oftentimes a lot of these items are more available than we think. Titansmith is on the table. Neither of our runners know this.
Absolutely. Or maybe Mijati just was desperate for an early break. Who knows? But we'll have him getting this big key out of the chest here, and he'll be ascending up the tower here momentarily, while who42baker is just a room away from facing the Armos Knights.
Yeah, it has a really good arrow count to work with, too, so 23 should be no problems to finish that out. As far as, and you mentioned it should be big key down here, shouldn't it? Ooh, we're low on magic, though. Thankfully, there's a full refill here.
And a textbook Armos Knight skill. Doesn't get that last one in one shot, but very nicely done from who42 all the same. It looks like Mijati utilizing a Death Warp, I hope anyway, before... yes, okay, that was a Death Warp. Very good.
I was looking at that like, wait a second, was it?
Yeah, that is probably one of the worst places to die, not intentionally, for sure.
Well, we do still have a couple of potential item locations. We haven't found anything of serious value here in Hera, so it'd be rough if this red pendant was a red herring. We're hoping that the equipment that we have here is going to make it easy to get through, but Mijati, unfortunately, forgetting that Canterbury does actually activate crystal switches, having a little bit of a delay there.
And who42 is now getting his dam and presumably mini Moldorm cave checks done now, and he'll be quite pleased with getting those silvers. Maybe not quite so pleased immediately getting silvers after the Armos Knights, but beggars and choosers.
Yep, certainly very useful in many other places. It looks like Mijati has ruled out Moldorm as having an item, so Mijati is going to save and quit out of there, heading back to Link's house.
Or maybe going to the Sanctuary now. Meanwhile, who42 entering the mini Moldorm cave here, getting his silver arrows here, assuming he can navigate these mini Moldorms without too much difficulty.
Yeah, so at this point, I believe it was the other lift upgrade was back behind Sahasrahla, so if Mijati's heading in that direction right now, dropping down into the escape, this is very good.
Yes, definitely. At the very least, getting this out of the way, but he will be pleased to find the flute and a sword, amongst other things, in these sewers here, and a bottle with a fairy in it. So that gives him a bottle as well. And meanwhile, who42baker will be on his way to getting 300 rupees out of the Ice Rod Cave now that he's got his silver arrows from the mini Moldorms.
So, I mean, if you were in Mijati's position, you just found out that escape bomb was going to be pretty time costly, knowing that you haven't had the flute. I mean, we can see on our end that, it's really not too much of a spread between these two. who42's finished Eastern, but, I mean, you got to think you're behind at this point, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just not getting out of the escape sequence without a bomb would have me rattled in and of itself. And then knowing that the lack of said bomb left me without a sword and a flute for a good 15 plus minutes, I would definitely be thinking I was in second place right now and be more prone to maybe making a couple of gambles that I wouldn't otherwise make.
Well, it's definitely a great break to find out that both of those lift upgrades were accessible to us. That could have been extremely costly. So Mijati's going to be able to get that flute activated. The goose will be loose. With that, we'll see where he goes next.
Absolutely. Looks like we got a fake flipper setup attempting here from who42baker, trying to see about getting the various items here around Lake Hylia, the hobo, and the waterfall, and a Zora check as well, since he has well over 500 rupees. Getting that all done out of sequence here. Well, some of them anyway.
Yeah, I mean, Waterwalk is definitely doable at this point with that Moon Pearl, so that's very accessible. One thing I also learned recently, Bloomerang. One thing I learned recently that folks might be interested to find out about, you can actually do a setup for fake flippers by using a bomb and knocking yourself as close to the screen transition as possible. It'll put you 1 pixel away from it, and all you gotta do is just walk in, but we're getting so at Zora.
I can only empathize with who42baker, the fake flipper death. Yikes.
And it's always like really frustrating to get it at that point, like when you're right about to go into Waterfall Cave. I mean, if you get all the way to Zora, you're like, well, I can probably just flute to 2, but I mean, that's extra punishing.
Yeah, or getting sniped right at the doorstep of the waterfall, like I happened to pull off in week 2. That was quite. That wasn't the greatest feeling in the world. Meanwhile, who42baker is going to pick himself up, though, head straight to Death Mountain via the flute and get the old man collected and get a fire rod for his courtesy.
Yeah, so Fire Rod points some interesting directions. I mean, we know that there is one pendant in the Dark World. We don't know if that's going to be, Skull Woods or anything. We haven't had a check yet, but that would be one place that would be very accessible to our runners now that they have that.
Most certainly. We got Mijati here. We'll be getting the Titans mitts out of Sahasrah's hut here, and that will be a major advantage for him over who42baker at this time.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things that Mijati can do. I mean, having those silver arrows, you kind of want to take care of Eastern Palace, but now that you have Mirror as well, I mean, you might as well do it when you do Palace of Darkness. 1 in 7 chance that Palace of Darkness is the green pendant, so I mean, it's not like it's bad if you get that. We will get a fetch quest turned in, though, not being set back by that first one.
Yep, but Mijati a little too eager to get that item. You have to do a screen transition in order for that item to reveal itself, and we'll be doing that now. And we'll see if this is yet another red herring or if there's actually some value here.
Yeah, that blue guard that Mijati saw there on the other screen. Fun fact: once you've defeated Aghanim, he turns into a red guard. He's Usain Bolt's cousin, actually, the second fastest guard in Hyrule.
Very nice. We got who42baker now getting it. We have a Dark World check. Meyer is your other red crystal. I did not see the red pendant or the green pendant.
Yeah, I was a little slow on that one myself. Ooh, wow, that map check was fast.
Probably just wanting to confirm what he had already learned. Meanwhile, Mijati is using his Titan's mitts to access Meyer here, and we have Ether as a required medallion for Meyer.
Well, I certainly like the idea. I mean, nobody likes to go to Meyer super early, but we have everything we need. So, I mean, well, except we need a hookshot or boots to get. Ooh, flippers.
Flippers out of the Meyer shed and the magic powder as well. So if you want to get creative and get a magic bat check without the hammer, that is possible at this time. And we are learning, of course, that Swamp Palace is your green pendant for this seed. So Mijati hoping that hopefully the flippers won't be used in that respect, but nice to get them all the same.
Yeah, Swamp Palace Green Pendant. That's a sour note in my mind, but it is possible to get there without the hammer to check that first chest. As for the rest of it, though, I'm sure our runners definitely want to see a hammer before they try to do something like that. However, if they do find it, I have to think that the Pod Eastern Palace combo is next on the list for Mijati when he can.
So now that we have everything identified dungeon-wise, we're going to need both rods, unfortunately. Of course, the hammer and hookshot are always going to be required, and still don't have a lamp for either of these players either, so we may get to see how comfortable these guys are with their dark rooms if this lamp continues to be as elusive as it's been for the first half hour.
Yeah, it would be a big deal to find it early, too. It would be the gateway for a lot of different items that would be out of logic. I mean, that fire rod's technically out of logic until we find that lamp. So it could be one of those weird things where we find lamp in Skull Woods or something like that, where it would normally be a required double dip, but potentially with the sequence breaking, we could have some skips.
We have Mijati taking a dip inside Desert Palace here, where we just learned that it would not have been boots locked with the map sitting there on the torch. Let's see if they're able to locate any other interesting finds here in the 2 items of this dungeon, while Moldorm is being handled by who42.
An interesting choice. I mean, I want to say that he's been counting his items. He might be gambling on the fact that pendant or pedestal could potentially be required here. Now, I gotta think about the actual pendants themselves, but I mean, it could be just a safety measure to make sure, hey, I didn't miss any items, didn't miss any required pendants.
And Mijati picking up the big key for Desert Palace. He's going to go ahead and check the big key chest. I'm not sure if he's going to go ahead and take the time to defeat Landmo, but he might if there's still an item left behind here.
Yeah, and we do have the advantage of a mirror. This is one of the dungeons where you probably want it the most. Not only that, but if we wanted to, we could, use different entrances to try to route it differently depending on the key situation. We have a compass, so the Lamb Molus is still on the table.
Certainly is. Let's see if Mijati is going to go ahead and devote the time for it. It appears that he is.
Yeah, no, this is also a sequence break. We don't have that lamp or fire rod before that lamp, so if we didn't do that dark room, we wouldn't be able to do this. So this could pay off for him. Could also be a red herring.
Could also be a red herring. I think that's basically the motto of Randomizer in my experience. But in any case, we've got who42 taking his 5. Mijati is just a few rooms away from tackling Landmo. He does have silver arrows and and fire rod, so Landmo should not be that much of a time investment once he gets there.
Yeah, this is a comparatively cozy fight. Just one silver arrow does 100 damage, which is quite a lot more than we need. In all situations, that's your best weapon if it does damage to an opponent. So, this will be a quick fight from Mijati.
And just some bombs in the basement for who42. I'm probably not too pleased with that, but in any case, Hera is done and dusted. So he'll be fluting out of there onto greener pastures. Meanwhile, Mijati is taking care of Landmo there with some well-executed silver arrows. Just one more, and very quick Landmo reveal there.
Yeah, those short hops are really annoying because there's like a couple of frame window that you can really land something, and not only that, but it's very frustrating. But that big 20 I think I just saw, probably not what Mijati was hoping for.
Yeah, speaking of frustrating, just getting paid off with just 20 rupees for all that time and effort. Certainly not ideal for sure. We'll see where Mijati decides to go from here while who42 is getting Agita taken care of here.
Yeah, that Titansmith's a very great find. So both of our runners have some interesting choices to make right now.
Looks like the choice Mijati is making is also going ahead and using his flippers. Does not need to worry about fate flippering as he has the necessary flippers and will be getting all these checks out of the way, similar to who42.
The nice thing about early flippers is you might actually try fake flippers anyway, but if you mess it up, you're good.
And you can get hit to your heart's content and not have to suffer any repercussions other than your typical health losses. Meanwhile, who42 is going to go ahead and get to his Dark World Warp towards the Village of Outcasts. We'll see if he dips into Skullwoods first here since he has the fire run. It seems like that is indeed the play.
Yeah, everything points pretty clearly to it. I mean, we have a crystal here, so seems like a worthwhile decision. Hobo's not got a lot of money. He's living under the bridge for a reason. His big 20 is all the lunch money he could afford to give us. Hopefully Link doesn't forget about him later when he has a lot more rupees.
Mijati electing to go right back to the Village of Outcasts instead of completing the other checks around the water there. So we'll see how that pays off for him down the line.
Yeah, with the flexibility of the flute, our runners will make some very different decisions because now it's not really as time intensive to get to locations. It's much easier to check those one-offs as you need to. I would think that their priority is going to shift to dungeon clearing now that they have so many of these items.
Absolutely. We got a bomb jump here from who42baker. Very nicely done. And gets a small key. And so he'll be on his way to check this last chest over on the right. And will be on his way towards the backside of Skullwoods, you would have to imagine.
Yeah, a little unfortunate to find nothing in the front half. Usually you're going to find a lot of progression items in the front half. Mijati, however, is also checking the next item location. This would be the most likely next spot.
Now, so did Mijati presumably just skip all of the front of Swamp Woods? I guess he's going to go ahead and check it on his way out, presumably.
Yeah, and we don't need a big key to finish the boss, so if you're planning on finishing this anyway, makes a lot of sense, although you do have a little bit of a drawback. You have to decide whether or not you want to go for that other chest that's in the back half, which is time intensive.
It may actually pay off huge. I don't believe there was any items in the front side of Skull, so it looks like both items may be collected here in this back side here. Mothula and the chest en route to it. So we'll see if Mijati can take advantage of that.
Yeah, some astute item counting would really be a huge time save. You're absolutely right about that because we have ruled everything else out. So Mijati should, if we are counting our items, be able to avoid that. Definitely a mistake I would make, though. I would probably clear them all anyway.
Yeah, I've never actually considered doing a back first, but this is may have me thinking twice going forward. In any case, Mijati clearing out the Gibdo, giving him free reign to light up these torches without any threat, and will be on his way to Mathia with about half magic to his name.
Yeah, it's interesting to use silver arrows there. In the vanilla game, you get a lot of magic drops from Gibdos, particularly if you're spamming, say, Fire Rod at them. So it's a little safer to kill them that way if you're going to kill them. But with randomized prize packs, it's a little less certain.
And we do have a large bomb capacity upgrade for who42 with the knowledge that there was definitely going to be an item here. He went straight for it and will be death warping back to the entrance, give himself a little bit more health and give him a little bit more to work with for his Mothula fight. Both these guys running Mothula with just the fighter sword and the fire rod.
Yeah, it's not the craziest fight ever with Blue Mail, but they don't have a ton of health, and that fighter sword's really the biggest issue. I mean, you don't have half magic to work with. Nobody's got a potion to refill their magic. Mijati's got to be careful here.
Very careful. One hit from anything spells his doom, and that is unfortunately a death at Mothula from Mijati.
Oh, he still has that fairy.
Oh, he does.
Used it.
I stand corrected. Mijati going and finishes off with an assist from that fairy.
And a big 20 for his trouble.
That is crystal number 1 in this race, right at the 36-minute mark for Mijati. who42baker will be collecting that, provided he can take care of Mothula. He does not have that fairy, so he'll need to exercise a little bit more caution, as he does not have that safety net.
Not only that, but he actually walks into the fight with a little bit less magic, so it'd be interesting to see if, he's got a little bit of experience, say, with a game like a Bullet Hell that, will allow him to dodge these spikes, because this is a very dangerous fight the longer it goes on. Meanwhile, Mijati will check that other chest that we know doesn't have anything of value. Ooh, who42 missing quite a few fire rod shots there.
He is just down to his fighter sword and hopefully dodging a lot of spikes and beams from Mothula here. But getting some spin slashes off. Let's see if he can get enough in to close the deal before Mothula does the same. And he does. Very nicely done from who42baker, collecting his red rupee and his first crystal as well.
He made really fantastic use of sword spins, and sword spins are valuable for more than just having done more damage. When you do the same amount of damage in swipes, you're going to actually push Mothula against those spikes, where if he touches the spikes, it overwrites any damage you just did. So very smart to use those sword spins, trying to do so when Mothula was approaching him towards the center. Very intelligent fight.
Yes, very nicely executed. Now we'll see where these runners just branch off from their respective skill was clearing. Mijati looks to be checking Bumper Cave. Will you show that has just some bombs? So Magic Cave at this point, not entirely relevant. It may be later if Spike Cave comes into play.
And then, of course, there's the extremely long shot that the only way to Palace of Darkness is through Aghanim.
Although Mijati, we both have the Cane of Burniso, Magic Cape, but looks to be it will take a back seat this seat. Mijati checking Graveyard Ledge as well, and we'll see what that has in store. Without the boots, King's Tomb is going to have to remain unchecked at this point. We'll see where Mijati goes after this.
It's really frustrating to not be able to get to King's Tomb. Now, if our runners do find Hookshot, then they may pair that with Catfish, but otherwise it's going to be really hard to get back to here without sinking quite a lot of time into it.
Yeah, Mijati may want to go ahead and utilize his flippers to cross the gap there and go ahead and get a Catfish and a Pyramid check out of the way, since without the hammer, it is very difficult to get there with any sort of convenience.
Oh, that's right. We can use flippers. So we do have east side Dark World access. We're not worried about having the hammer at this point or Hookshot, at least for the moment, to get to there. So that is really good news. And yeah, I got to think Catfish is next. You're right there.
Yeah, and who42baker does not have this luxury, so that may be something that Mijati can parlay into an advantage here. who42baker is locked out of this portion that Mijati is currently traversing.
Well, it seems fairly likely that we're going to find something here. Palace of Darkness only has so many items you can get to, potentially Lamp being one of them, but, we're heading in this direction anyway by progression. It seems fairly likely. but it is just one item compared to the many that you can find in Palace of Darkness. So we're going to find out in just a moment if this is worthwhile.
Yep, it looks like who42 is going to clear out the remainder of the Village of Outcasts, may get a Thieves' Town clearance as well, although without the hammer, that may not be preferable, but we'll see. Meanwhile, we got a bottle with a B from the Catfish.
Well, I mean, depending on how you view these things, that may or may not be worthwhile, but we do get a really nice routing decision out of it. We're going to get Waterfall Cave and Zora Legend, Zora himself. 50 rupees and a lamp.
And the hammer from the chess game out of who42baker. So those two items combined, those are huge finds. Either may want the others here, depending on Darkroom comfort, but huge finds from both of our players within seconds of each other.
Hey, where were those flippers again?
That is a wonderful question. I do not recall. If someone in chat or could give us a friendly reminder, that'd be much appreciated.
Well, Bumble Hut does have Master Sword, so that's the Master Hut there.
Meyer Shed is where our flippers are. So with the flute and Titan's mitts, who42 absolutely can collect that if and when he decides to route Meyer into all this.
Well, we're hoping for his sake that he checks that first, although may end up doing a little bit of backtracking if he doesn't.
And thanks, guys, for the numerous responses to our query there. Thanks for filling in the many gaps of my memory. We do have a Thieves' Town check on the way here for who42. Meanwhile, Mijati is taking the long walk out of Zora's domain. Looks like he'll be reutilizing that portal and continuing with his East Side Dark World check. Excuse me.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't make sense to try to get back here any other way. So it would appear that we're heading to Palace of Darkness. Or at the very least, there's really no other way to go. I mean, that would be a very long way to go back to Village of Outcasts. So yeah, I mean, we're going to get a Palace of Darkness check out of Mijati now that we have that lamp. I agree with that. The hammer we know is not there, so this will be a double dip for sure for Mijati. Depends on whether we find the hook shot, whether or not it makes sense to go here early.
Yep, I can certainly cannot fault the routing decisions being made by Mijati at all at this point. We got a big key for who42 and the red mail, so this little penguin will be sporting the red getup for the remainder of this seed.
And a great find for this location. Thieves' Town has a lot of dangerous enemies. The spikes we can't do much about, but you know, some of these red horse heads and then the blue ones are certainly much less of a threat at this point.
Absolutely, Mijati. We will have a pyramid ledge check here forthcoming. And we have just a piece of heart.
Yeah, so I suppose at this point, you know, kind of figuring out where the relative differences are in time spent versus, you know, time rewarded. I got to think that Mijati has pretty much until who42 goes after those flippers to be considered, I suppose, ahead. But if those flippers get found beforehand, that could end up being pretty beneficial for who42 in terms of like comparing them relatively.
Yep, and Mijati is about to do a double dip here with Pod, whereas who42 looks to be perfectly set up to take care of Pod in one go whenever that does come to pass. So that may be some subtle savings there for who42, depending on, again, when he decides to take the dive.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of ways for who42 to get there, too. I would think that fluting to 5 is probably going to be the best route. That is something that Mijati did not have available, so that'll be a pretty hefty time save to get over there. And we know that Catfish itself wasn't valuable, though the question kind of remains, when would who42 actually go to that waterfall cave? I mean, once you've had the bad luck of getting, you know, hugged by a Zora and fake flippers, it's really tough to make that commitment twice.
Absolutely. We have Mijati is now going to go ahead and get Eastern taken care of here. Which makes perfect sense. He's going to go ahead and do this prior to diving into Pod, which, again, that's a very wise decision there in case you happen to find the hammer in here in Eastern. Unfortunately, that will not come to pass, but Mijati certainly has no way of knowing that.
And of course, a little bit of time saved from having those silvers where who42baker did not. Now, if only we had that hook shot. You know, speaking of it, 45 minutes in, we have no word of boots.
No boots, no hook shot either. So we'll see. We'll see if that comes to play at some point. We need one of those items to clear out Myers, so we're gonna have to find one of those at some point. Obviously, the hook shot more important overall, but yeah, we've let's see what we have here in the big key chest here of Thieves Town for who42. And what do you know?
Them or those, huh?
Let me just close this spot. Anyways, all right, so we got the boots now for who42baker. That's nice. Give a little pep in who42's step for the remainder of the scene. Meanwhile, Mijati is collecting a compass there out of Eastern, and who42 is dashing on his way to taking care of Blind.
Yeah, those boots aren't made for walking, so he will actually, have a really safe blind fight here. Has sword beams walking into it, has plenty of health to work with, red mail. Shouldn't have to worry about getting hugged. And it looks like he's pretty familiar with the patterns here, so doing very well to dodge right now.
Yep, ideally you don't want Blind to find his way to the south side, but no matter for who42, dispatches Blind with relative quickness and will be awarded with some sticks.
Well, the advent of boots at this point opens up a couple of extra item locations and definitely makes the eventual ascent to Ganon's Tower a lot less, stressful. Obviously, Mijati will find those eventually if he checks Village of Outcasts first before diving into Thieves Town. We hope and pray that he does, because that's, would be a lousy way to lose time. But, at this point, very easy to get around. It'd be a shame, though, if who42 decided to check boots locations and they didn't have anything.
Yep, and I would have to imagine that he will be doing that. Now that you have those options opened up, may think that the boots are the key to find those key items. But we have the digging game being attempted here from who42 and gets yet another arrow to go along with the 10 that Blind provided. So not the ideal find, but he'll be moving on from there. And we have Mijati on his way up to his Armos Knights with the benefit of silvers.
Now, it's interesting to see, how much of Palace of Darkness Mijati is going to attempt. I mean, we have the lamp, we have, most of the equipment we would want to have, but without that hammer, routing becomes kind of annoying if you're going to try to do the right side at all.
Looks like who42 is setting up to fool the Magic Bat after he gets the blacksmiths reunited.
And we'll even get a peg chest, or peg cave check as well. Well, if you wanted to see the fast version of the Armos fight, there it starts and there it goes. That's about it.
7 arrows, not 6. Come on, Mijati. Have some decent, and very nicely done by Mijati, using those silver arrows to his advantage, getting his second crystal at the 48-minute mark.
And we'll also have an opportunity to see what the blacksmiths have. Wow.
Vanilla blacksmiths for once. Very nice. Getting a tempered sword.
I haven't seen that since the last NMG match I commentated.
And we're going to get a fake powder here from who42.
Something even crazier is that's not really that far off time-wise from when you would get it in an NMG speedrun.
And a small key there in the first chest of pods, so it would not have been bow locked. That is certainly not relevant at this point how early they got their respective bows, but Mijati will be onto the lobby here, see what more he can collect as efficiently as he can.
Interesting thing that who42baker did there, who42 has not been to Myers Shed yet, so opting to fake powder the Magic Bat by using magic until it's depleted, bringing out the Cane of Samaria, getting the "You Need More Magic" text box, and then immediately switching to the mushroom to do just one quick powder automatically. The useful glitch didn't get as much here though.
And who42 has gained a purple chest follower, and who42 will be on his way towards the southern Dark World locations, on his way to providing that fetch quest as well. Meanwhile, Mijati is continuing his pod completion, or at least as much completion as can be had.
Yeah, it has to navigate all the key logic. It's something that, is wow, we have a book for who42baker. K45, wow.
K45 spells literacy for who42, and let's see if that will give him the luxury of doing a Bombos tablet check on his way to, or right after getting this purple chest. So that definitely threads in the routing very nicely for him there.
Yeah, when you put it that way, that's about as advantageous as it gets. Of course, we don't know if it's going to mean anything, but definitely nice to be able to get it out of your mind. That's the best possible place you could find it on the way to purple chest.
And it looks like we're finally going to get a hype cave check as well here. Or no, who42 is going to go ahead and take his chest onward and get that deposited post haste.
Well, in the meantime, Mijati not finding much in Palace of Darkness so far. He still has to check the back half. Purple chest is going to have just 10 arrows for us today. That's rough. But it definitely feels better to get at least one other item with this. This is usually a really annoying place to have to even stop in the first place, and you never really get a chance to do both at the same time. So might as well do it for posterity, I would think.
Absolutely, and we're going to get that reveal here momentarily while Mijati is on his way, and just gets a net for his quick check.
All right, so I think that means Aghanim is required, right?
Oh, absolutely. Kidding me?
Or even better, Swaganim required.
There you have it. We have the red meringue out of the Harmless Hellway for Mijati.
Yeah, that's too bad. Nobody wants that lag, and we have, I believe, skipped a blue boomerang at some point. So we're going to have lag on our screen anytime we use that. That's unfortunate.
Meanwhile, we'll see how hyped the so-called hype cave is for this seed. Really, the hook shot's probably the one thing that would really bring up the hype here. Let's see if that comes to pass.
Yeah, not much else to speak of beyond that. I mean, we do actually have a butter sword out there. I mean, we get a fire shield so far. It's not bad. Small piece of heart, another piece of heart. That should be enough for a full heart. Wow, 3 in a row. So interesting cave. It's a security blanket cave, maybe.
Yeah, if you're desperate for health, you might derive some hype there, but little else, quite frankly, outside of that shield upgrade. And we do have who42 will be on his way to looks like a pyramid possible catfish check before a dive to pod potentially.
Well, we do have murmurs in chat about a possible turtle rock check. I mean, that is pretty much available to us. We have hammer on the table, and we can get to the top of, yeah, so you can get to turtle rock at this point, and we just got to hopefully not see quake.
Looks like who42 is about to meet up with the resident catfish of the northeastern Dark World. Meanwhile, Mijati is on back to the Village of Outcasts, looks like.
This is really rough for who42. We really want to have flippers at this point, so not going to Meyer Shed is going to be a little bit costly here.
Looks like he's going to go ahead and get his mushroom and maybe a couple of potion purchases done here en route.
Yeah, lots of rupees to work with. Still has the 500 trade to make with Zora, but there is plenty for a blue potion, so I would think that would be a good time to get one.
Meanwhile, Mijati getting his much desired hammer here right as the timer turns over to 54 minutes. So he will enter Thieves' Town without any concern of possibly leaving anything behind. And he will be taking care of this dungeon as well.
Yeah, we're definitely happy to see that we grabbed that hammer first. Those boots, it'd be a slow time without them. Link's feet would probably hurt a lot as well. Got a lot of running left to do. Though it remains to be seen if that hook shot is behind a boot's location. I think that would be the one way that would have been punishing here. Well, so pretty straightforward. Our runners are overlapping some of the previous routes. Want to take this opportunity, since there's not a whole lot going on with the respective dungeons and checks, to remind everybody. These folks are putting on a great show for us. I definitely appreciate if you guys show them some love and send them a quick follow. There's a lot of randomizer tournament ahead, and these runners, regardless of their results today, do have matches to do going forward. I assume, based on what we've seen so far, it'd be really exciting to see the rest of their runs.
Yep, regardless of the result, both of these runners will still be fighting for a bracket position at this juncture, since they will only have a maximum of 2 losses after this. So, if you'd like to continue to watch their progression through this tournament, feel free to give them that respective follow. We would very much appreciate it, as well as any of the other Speed Gaming or Link to the Past Randomizer channels.
So I'm trying to remember where we found Lamp. Because that's an awkward position for who42baker right now. I mean, has pretty much everything you need for Palace of Darkness, but that. Oh, yes, chat reminding us Waterfall Cave. So, yeah, this Mire check is really, really a thorn in who42's side right now.
Yeah, critical thing lacking for who42 that Mijati was able to get with that relatively early Mire check. Pretty much going there immediately after it, having the mitts and the flute at his disposal. So we'll see how long that remains for who42. I imagine at some point he's going to have to thread that in. He's outside of, although he may want to go Death Mountain before then too, so that could possibly extend it even more.
Yeah, I mean, we were joking around about Turtle Rock being a location, but we can access that portal. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that we can check because of that. So there's quite a few things that could throw who42 off the logic track here. Hopefully, though, I mean, with all the items pretty much needed to get into Mire besides... Oh, we have boots. There's a decent chance that he might end up going there pretty soon.
Very nicely timed ferry from Mijati there in Thieves Town there. Tops off his health and gives him more than enough to presumably complete this without any concern.
And it is always exceptionally nice to have full or nearly full health walking into blind. There's one heart pot that I'm not sure if he picked it up on the way through, would help us get there. But sword beams, they do the same amount of damage to blind as any other weapon. So the range is really nice to have. I mean, you could use Cane of Samaria, but good to have those backups.
Another difference as well is who42 right now sporting the Tempered Sword. I do recall, obviously, one of them being at the blacksmiths, but Mijati still appears to be just on level 1 fighter sword at this point. So that makes no difference for the blind fight, mind you, but it's for any further offensive exploits, he may be wanting those sword upgrades sooner than later.
Now, the nice thing, though, is that... Ooh, there's the boots. The nice thing is that once we... have finished this dungeon, there's still the bombable hut that is in Village of Outcasts, so we should hopefully check that for the Master Sword, and then, of course,
correct.
It'll make sense to get tempered.
Yep, so it shouldn't be that big of an issue there at this point for Mijati. Should be equalizing the sword situation in due time. who42 returning to the entrance and continuing on with his pod clearance. Meanwhile, blind is on the cards for Mijati right now.
Well, it'll be an interesting fight. It also shows us how much our runners have practiced their boss fights. This is the most reproducible boss fight with the least amount of RNG. Every 4th fireball that these heads shoot at Link are going to actually track Link's position. So if you know that in advance and you time the patterns right, you can dodge every single one of them and look like you just came out of the Matrix. And you can call Mijati Neo there. Clearly, I'm having not too much, trouble with blind. I mean, taking what, 3 or 4 hits?
Yeah, very respectable blind fight for sure from both of these players. Mijati displaying that as well now, collecting his Thieves Town crystal. just before the 1 hour mark. Meanwhile, who42 without a lamp is having to do the blue rupee room here and get these 2 items. Without the luxury of sight, getting a small key from the right chest. Let's see what the left chest has. And another small key, typical for Pod.
Yeah, definitely Keytropolis in there. And, it's kind of a gut check moment here for who42baker. I mean, if you can do the turtle rooms in the dark, this isn't that bad of a play to go through here. You save a little bit of, doubling back to it. But, I mean, that's time sink to try to get through that and the dark maze.
Yeah, and while who42 does have the fire rod to potentially light up that turtle room, he currently does not have any magic to utilize it. So we'll see how who42baker responds to that. I believe he has a blue potion. I'm not sure if you want to spend it there ideally, but you may have to if he's not comfortable otherwise.
Yeah, I think you read his mind as he was going to his menu, because there's some contemplation here about whether this is actually worth it. Well, I admire his gumption for trying. The other thing that stinks too is that there really are no magic pickups on the way to Helmasaur King. There might be one in the basement in the first dark room, but that would be one of the skull pots that you would try to avoid going to, because that turtle will chase you down.
Most certainly. Yeah, it's really just hoping you get a magic drop from one of the many turtles you extinguish on the way. So we'll see how who42baker continues on here, getting the compass out of the big chest, and Mijati about to reunite the blacksmiths and get his tempered sword as a reward.
Yeah, so Mijati making good decisions here. This is definitely the place he wants to be. Tempered sword is really our safety item for fighting in this game. Pretty much everything that in the game can be pretty easily killed with tempered sword. When it comes to Ganon and Ganon's tower, you might want that gold sword, but tempered is the very minimum for us to feel safe here.
Absolutely. Most runners tend to be content with the tempered sword, but we'll certainly not turn down a golden sword if provided to them. Anyways, who42 is without magic, has to unfortunately look at that cane of Samaria in his inventory, and while he's pushing that statue to the switch.
Oh, that's even worse. You have the item, you just can't use it. Well, with that, we have our tempered, and we're going to attempt the dark rooms of turtles. We already did the dark maze. Andy did it wonderfully, by the way. Took less time than I probably would when it's lit, unfortunately.
Well, we have who42 now going through this first room here in the dark. Let's see if he can do this without having to defer to his blue potion here. Be very impressive if he would.
Well, the first 2 rooms pretty straightforward, but this is the one that matters. There are a lot of turtles in here. If you do it the NMG way, you can actually get through pretty reliably. He gets 4 of them immediately. He just has to kill 2 more.
Looks like he is more than familiar with the NMG way, with taking care of those 4 right off the bat, using that tempered sword spin slash to dispatch them once they were presumably knocked over. Still fishing for that last one, though.
Not only that, but he even got a hard drop. He has not taken any damage in this room. That's crazy. And he pulls it off. Holy smokes.
Very nicely done from who42, preserving his blue pot, and will be on his way to King Helmasaur here momentarily.
That's by far one of the best dark turtle rooms I've ever seen. Taking just 1 heart into Helmasaur King. That's crazy. Well, we definitely won't need magic here, and a silver arrow will knock out the second half. May opt to do some more conventional strats with tempered sword, but should have relatively little issue having that blue potion here.
So despite not having the lamp, who42 clutching it out and taking care of Pod in one go, while Mijati will have to return here to take care of King Helmasaur. But that is a significant difference between these 2 runners' playthroughs at this point.
Yeah, and at the time, we all thought that Mijati would have the advantage, having the equipment, but he does have to double dip. So, who42baker really clutching out what is probably the most important routing difference so far.
Absolutely. We'll see where who42 decides to go from here. Meyer is where he would like to go, but let's see if he decides to go there, or maybe takes a dip up back to Death Mountain now that he has access to all of those locations.
Well, the safe quit is handy. We're going to go to Sanctuary. It's an interesting choice. We'll see what we're going to get out of that. And in the meantime, though, Mijati is going to check the Bombos tablet.
I imagine King's Tomb and the Bonk Rocks are next on the list for who42 here.
And those are certainly easy places to forget about when you found a whole bunch of things recently, or you just had the rush of doing a dark room in Palace of Darkness. So very heads up to stay, in the logic with this for who42. Nothing too good out of King's Tomb. The Piece of Heart's not a bad find, but we definitely want to see that hook shot.
A little bit of saving grace that it completed another heart container for who42, but with Red Mail, I'm sure that was not what he was particularly in the mood for. But we'll see if the Bonk Rocks has anything more appetizing for who42 here.
At the same time, Mijati's also going to check the relatively unhyped cave. I'm going to get some heart pieces. Probably going to get a new heart container then. Well, actually, there's 4 in there, so yeah, definitely going to. I think it's a little bit wild to get 4 pieces of heart in one cave.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. There are 24 of them scattered here and yon throughout the playthrough, but still getting 1/6 of them all in one location is pretty crazy, I would say.
Well, looks like who42baker is going to fake flipper his way to Waterfall Cave. We'll get the same result. Probably not going to be too happy about what he finds when he realizes it, but all the same, I mean, good on him to do this next.
Yep, however you can get it, he will take it for sure. Meanwhile, Mijati is now looking to complete that double dip to pod. And now there's the lamp for who42. Kind of probably a little sore about getting that immediately after doing a dark pod, but probably no complaints for him, to be sure, knowing that Meyer in the dark is no longer in the cards.
Yeah, and that's a great relief after you just did quite literally the most clutch, dark phase that you could through Palace of Darkness. I mean, that's got to be a breath of relief, knowing that we're going to have to do Misery Mire. Well, with that, squared away, we're going to get the Zora check taken care of, but Mijati's got to, dive all the way back to Helmasaur King. I don't think we left any items in here, but if we did, then this would be kind of an unfortunate double dip.
Looks like all the dungeon items are collected. He has 1 key left, presumably the key to be used on the way to King Helmasaur. So it certainly looks like a full clear outside of defeating the boss for Mijati. Meanwhile, who42 it looks like a Meyer check maybe on the way, as he just refilled his health at the Old Man and will be on his way to the Meyer location. We'll be getting flippers immediately after fake flippering, because of course.
Yeah, and I gotta think the who42 is gonna look at these and think, oh gosh, I am so far behind. This was available for such a long time. But the reality is, I mean, by doing those dark rooms, you really did close that separation. I would even argue at this point, he's probably a little bit ahead.
Yeah, a slight advantage, if not neck and neck. We'll see when these runners converge on each other here, but not a lot of separation, I would have to say, at this point, once Mijati gets his pod completed. But we'll see how who42 gets a Meyer check in here. I didn't see the medallion that Meyer... Oh, it's Ether, excuse me. We've already known that.
Well, now I'm kind of wondering what's next. I mean, Meyer is right there. We'd probably want to do that, but, so if we don't find Hookshot in there, what do you do? I guess Turtle Rock at that point.
Yep. Maybe a Spike. Maybe it's somewhere in Spike Cave, potentially. Well, in Spike Cave. We know where it is if it's in Spike Cave, after all.
It's behind a lot of pain and misery.
Indeed. Just the 20 rupees there for the Desert Ledge. And who42 is going to warp right back, maybe take the dive into Meyer here.
It's looking good so far. I mean, we do have that Ether. Now, there's a lot of items to get here. So, this could be a bit of a time sink, and if it doesn't have Hookshot, that's going to be annoying.
This is indeed has to be considered a little bit of a gamble here. Meyer has to be done at some point, but who42baker taking away the possibility of go moding this rather annoying dungeon to do otherwise. We'll see if it pays off for him, though.
Otherwise, in the meantime, looks like Mijati has handled Helmus or King with not too many issues. We're getting nice little sword beam strats in Mire 2 here for who42baker. You're going to get these whiz ropes in 3 cycles. Probably wanted 2 there, but no problem. Got through there without taking much damage.
Speaking of the Matrix, who42 dodging those BMO shots like he is Neo himself. A little bit of bonk there, but no big deal. Who42, let's see where these items and the big key are located here in this Mire dungeon.
Also, like we talked about 30 or 40 minutes ago, I mean, there's really going to be just one item that would troll us, and this is a very fast seed, all things considered. I mean, we have, what, Misery Mire and Ice Palace Turtle Rock left?
More or less, assuming that pendant dungeons don't rear their ugly head as far as finding those desperately needed items. But yeah, that's what's left on the table here for our runners.
That's the tough one. I mean, we haven't really had to dive into pendants for much of anything at this point. Nothing that we were really hurting for. So, I mean, do you make that kind of gamble an hour and 10 minutes into the seed when it feels fast?
Well, the only remaining pendant that we haven't dived into between the two runners is Swamp. There are 6 items to be had there, so we might be able. There might be some pendant shenanigans still left. Plus, the green pendant being at Swamp if Sahasrara is being a little bit of a hoarder on his end.
So I think we wouldn't be able to have an issue with Hookshot there, but I'm trying to think of what else could potentially troll us here.
Ice Rod's always a troll candidate.
Ah, yes, yeah. So Ice Rod could actually be our go mode.
Or Quake if Turtle Rock pulls a 1 and 3 on us.
Which at this point, I would not be surprised. This seed has been generous.
It looks like Mijati is right on who42baker's heels as far as Mire check is concerned. So any potential advantage for either runner, depending on their Mire routing, is going to be negated here. Both of them going into Mire here right away.
And it would appear that who42 is resorting to the vanilla big key location, so it's very likely that Mijati is going to end up in the same place. We're not going to see much difference in total time spent here. It is very nice, absolutely fantastic to have those silver arrows for Vitreous, though. That's a much easier fight.
So, of course, we have a vanilla big key in Mire, as is seemingly tradition, at least from my perspective anyway. We still need to locate some items, though, so who42 is going to still go ahead and get the remainder cleared out, at least until he gets those 2 items, assuming Vitreous doesn't have one of those 2.
That chest that he just checked, very often forgotten, so glad to see that he got it. Didn't have anything of value besides a key, and we have plenty to work with. So who42baker still has to check this big key chest. Probably going to be frustrated because it's a pretty low chance of finding what we need here. Though, I mean, there are 2 items still on the table that we're definitely looking for, so absolutely going to make the check anyway.
No question. And without the hook shot, it's going to make a beeline before that floor collapses, just gets in just in the nick of time, and gets a map.
And, of course, grabbing this one on the side as well, getting a blue goo for it. That's definitely a good find. Wow.
Nice extra insurance without the without having to warp to back to the mushroom location. So very nice to get that. Looks like Vitreous will have the last item here, which not a big deal since we're gonna have to kill it anyway. So a little bit of extra reward for that trouble. As who42 will be making the descent to the darkened basement. Luckily, he's got his lamp, and we'll have to see how well he takes care of this portion.
So I gotta know, I mean, I want to say that both of these runners probably have, seen the damage boost strats against Vitreous. It is potentially faster if you're not a good enough marksman, to get a 0 cycle with silver arrows. What do you think our runners are going to do today?
30 arrows, I would imagine. If I were in who42, I would defer to the silvers, but certainly if who42 is feeling a little spicy, he could definitely take advantage of some iframes and get some spin slashes in. We'll just have to see which one he prefers to. The fact he didn't switch to a bow there may indicate that he's going to be using the sword there, as you could get a menu out of the way by switching to the bow right there to get that switch. But we'll see if that's any sort of a foreshadowing or not.
Yeah, and normally you would switch to powder if you were, low on health or something. But he has full health, so I mean, if he was going to do damage boost, this would be interesting. He powdered it just to make sure he didn't get hit by it. I like that. Because that is a pretty narrow window, so we're going to get silvers out of that. Silver strats out of who42baker here.
Some very nice shots, taking a little bit of his frustration out on that leftmost wall, but just using that one additional arrow, Vitreous is down, and that is yet another crystal collected for who42baker. Mijati and gets the ice rod, so forget about that troll. That's out of the way. Mijati will be right at his heels there. who42 taking care of Vitreous right before the 1 hour 15-minute mark.
Also, very nice and exciting to see a zero cycle Vitreous fight. It's very easy to mess up those arrow shots, and oftentimes people lose their zero cycle from doing that. So, very impressed to see who42 only missing, I believe, one arrow during the small eye phase. And we also see him switch to Mirror on the way to the second silver arrow shot. Vitreous, by the way, one of only two enemies that can take more than one silver arrow, Ganon being the other. But that mirror switch indicates that he's trying to switch to Flute. You'd normally save and quit otherwise.
And who42baker making a dive into ice with full health, with full magic, right off the heels of that Vitreous kill. So we'll see if our much desired hook shot is somewhere buried here in ice.
Yeah, it's definitely smart to take advantage of that blue potion that we just picked up. Cold Stare becomes a lot more straightforward. Plus, we have Bombos. So even if we don't find, say, half magic or something like that in here, there are ways to route this dungeon without hookshot. Our runners could get pretty creative here. Though, just as you mentioned before, Mijati not very far behind as far as the current dungeon progression goes, almost to the Vitreous fight himself.
Just a compass in the first chest with potential items here for who42. It'll be interesting to see if Mijati echoes who42's play to go directly into ice, or if he routes elsewhere, and see if we get some divergence there. Meanwhile, who42 is just on his way through the necessary rooms to proceed towards the next floor of the Ice Palace and a potential bomb jump.
Also, I believe we've missed a lot of Death Mountain check. We haven't really done all that yet.
Yeah, Death Mountain absolutely still in play here. Possibly without the hook shot, they're delaying to hopefully find a hook shot so they can do the hook shot cave in one go, possibly. But still many more other locations. Super Bunny Cave, the Turtle Rock Medallion, Spike Cave. No shortage of opportunities there.
Also, shout out to Mijati for trying the damage boost strats. The lightning there kind of thwarted him a little bit, but he's going to get in 2 cycles. Very respectable Vitreous fight as well. Also, looks like who42 Baker, I almost call him Bomber, gets a bomb jump in 1 try. Very nicely done for Ice Palace bomb jump.
Definitely being a very well-positioned bomber there, getting that Ice Palace bomb jump in a relative speed. Very nicely done. That'll offer him some sequence breaking of Ice Palace here. And we'll see if you can get these 3 items here and hopefully find a hook shot amongst them is certainly what he's looking for at this point.
So one thing we might see out of Mijati, we'll find out in just a moment, is whether or not the rest of the Death Mountain checks are in the cards, because that would be potentially a route divergence that could pay off for either runner.
But it looks like he is following who42baker in lockstep. Matt looks like he's going to get Ice Palace cleared as well. Interestingly, with Meyer and Eastern completed, the Fat Fairy is opened up for our runners as well.
Yeah, and if they don't find that hook shot, in the progression of this dungeon, I got to think that that's a very likely place to check. Having relatively early access to it and being able to do it before heading up to Turtle Rock, which is intended at this point to be our last dungeon. Hard to say what to expect here. I mean, who42baker still has quite a few item locations to check, is opting to skip over Cold Stare for now, so that makes sense. There are some bomb jumps you can do in this dungeon as well, some very creative ones, so we have a lot of opportunity to potentially just not even worry about the hookshot for now. But this does keep something like, I don't know, Laser Bridge on the table, or maybe Mimic Cave.
Absolutely. For all we know, Hookshot could be in the Hookshot cave with some strategic bonking following. But in any case, here we have who42. Now, without the Hookshot, he cannot complete the room to the north here without some hovering. So he will be electing to take the western exit here, and it looks like a bomb jump is in store here.
Actually, that hookshot room does have a bomb jump of its own. It's really hard to do though. But you just got to line up in the lowest possible pixel along the ledge to the right of that block. But you actually can jump across it. It's a pretty interesting one to learn.
Yeah, I might have to look into that then. That's certainly. Let's see here what we have here in these upcoming chests. Not much left for who42. There's the big key, so we can get a big key check on the way to Cold Stare as well. Meanwhile, Mijati's about to set up his presumable IPVJ as well.
Yeah, I want to say with all the gaps, I think there's like 6 or 7 total bomb jumps in this dungeon. This is definitely loaded with bomb jumps compared to the rest of the game. Well, moment of truth, who42baker has 2 chests checked, gets a nice riot shield.
Well, if Laser Bridge comes into play, that certainly makes things a lot less difficult to get that comfortably. Let's see what's in the vanilla big key chest here in Nice Palace. It is just some bombs, or the capacity to carry more bombs.
Also, looking like a bust for the most part. We still have that big key chest and Cold Stare itself, but that appears to be everything that we can check other than that.
Yep, and an unfortunate bonk leading to additional damage for who42. Needs to be a little careful here. Dying at any point in Ice Palace is far from ideal.
Yeah, it's extra punishing too if you don't have, like, say, the potions that we found recently, because you need magic just to get into the dungeon. So let's just say you use all of your magic at Cold Stare, it's really hard to come back. If this happened to us, say, in NMG, we would just go to another dungeon to get the magic refill from killing a boss. But that's not really a luxury in Randomizer. We really can't afford that kind of time loss.
Certainly not. who42 utilizing the powder, though, to take care of that anti-fairy and get to most of his health restored. And with the Bombos medallion, he will not have to worry about filling his magic to full to activate the Cold Stare fight, which Mijati is doing at this very moment.
Yeah, Bombos is a very nice thing to have. If we wanted to use Fire Rod for the rest of the fight, you would have plenty of magic to do so. But we have Tempered Sword, so just about 6 or so slashes for each of these, depending on how many we hit afterwards. Should be no problem. He seems to be doing pretty well with the fight. Meanwhile, who42baker, same thing. But he does have his Fire Rod equipped after Bombos, so I think he's going to use that in the fight.
Down goes Cold Stare for Mijati. who42baker right behind. Gets a few slashes in before Cold Stare escapes the corner. Utilizes all of his Fire Rod charges and will be left with the sword. Needs to be very careful, though.
Yeah, 2.5 hearts. You can take, I believe, 1 hug. Yeah, 1 hug, and then he gets hit.
Oh!
And the fairy that we found in this dungeon saving his life.
Yes.
That's clutch.
Nice assist. Yet another assist from Fairy for who42, faking me out quite well, but getting his crystal all the same. And that equals things up in the crystal situation between our 2 runners. Mijati, meanwhile, en route to Swamp, it looks like. We'll see where who42 decides to go with this next.
Yeah, Swamp's a bold play. I mean, there's a lot of items that we cannot get to.
Looks like a Fat Fairy check before Swamp, of course.
Okay, so I'm happy to see that. I mean, it might end up being absolutely nothing. It's, pretty low % chance, and plus we have to go the long way to get it. That being said, though, without that hook shot, I'd be very reluctant to go into Swamp Palace right now. Well, I think you have the right idea here. I think both of our runners are looking at the same check.
They're looking at their options and are like, Death Mountain, Turtle Rock without hook shot, Swamp. Hopefully the Double Chested Fairy will bail us out.
Yeah, and we're still relatively early in the race as far as, like, the maximum amount of time this, seed could feasibly take. I mean, they both know that it's been pretty straightforward so far. who42 probably feels a little further behind. But I mean, at this point, it's not like they're doing this at like 2 hours in.
Oh no, a lot of efficiency from both of these runners at this point. But yeah, who42 probably feels the pressure at this point, seeing the unfortunate ordering that he collected most of his items here after they could have been used for a slight advantage. But nothing doing from the Fat Fairy Fountain, unfortunately. And so Mijati is on to potential other plays at this point. Let's see where he's fluting to here. It looks like he is going to go ahead and give Death Mountain a thorough checking.
Yeah, and I think this makes a lot more sense than trying to check anything in Swamp. You know, I mean, it is pendant, it's also green pendant, but above all else, we actually can access all these items here. And the one in Hookshot Cave, it's a lot less things to skip over the Hookshot Cave items compared to Swamp Palace itself.
Absolutely. Logically speaking, this would be the correct decision to make for certain. Let's see if Mijati threads in a Spike Cave check here before proceeding onward toward other locations in Death Mountain.
Yeah, it's a relatively small check, you know, for the time it takes to do it. I mean, you would want to maybe save and quit out of it if you can help it. So, I mean, I think he might be trying to do that afterwards, but we also have an ether tablet. I forgot about that.
Oh, yes, absolutely. With that book that was collected in Cave 45, let's see what Ether Tablet has in store, and it is just some cash.
But it looks like who42 has remembered it as well, but will check the bushes for fairies? I thought he was going to go down to Spike Cave with that.
Certainly what it was looking like, but just a Spike Cave tease from both of our runners at this point on their way to Eastern Death Mountain.
Ooh, and who42 almost forgetting it, but has remembered, so he'll get his $50 from that. Relatively low on rupees, so actually that might not be that bad of a thing for him if he wants to try and fill up one of his potions. You know, he has the bug net, so you can get a fairy on the east side here. But otherwise, I would think, you know, blue potion down the road.
And we have Bombo, so Turtle Rock is open for business.
Well, Trinex doesn't have a medallion to hide behind, and this makes this a pretty straightforward check. Although, I mean, we still have a lot of Death Mountain available, and that hookshot would be nice for the torch room. For how little time it saves, though, relatively speaking, I think it probably makes sense to just dive in.
Yeah, we see just an arrow capacity upgrade in the island and the sky for who42, and it looks like he may be right on Mijati's heels. He looks to be at least heading to the warp point. Let's see if he decides to dive in once he realizes that the medallion is in his possession.
Yeah, I mean, let's go, folks. This is about as tight as you could expect it to be, an hour and a half almost in. Well, it definitely makes sense to open it when you're here, but does he dive in?
Does not. It looks like who42 is going to check some other locations before resorting to a Turtle Rock dive.
Truthfully, besides, you know, Swamp, can't really think of where else we would find a hookshot at this point. This could be a very pivotal decision.
I'll be very curious to see if Spike Cave has the goods here, considering they both walked past it. We have 320 rupees in the two Super Bunny Cave locations. Meanwhile, Mijati having to take a long way around to get these torches lit in order to proceed to this room with the two chests to the north.
Yeah, definitely smart to remember that before diving through. Ooh, really nice Cane of Burn-a-Dash there. Being low on magic, yep, he's going to mirror out.
Absolutely getting that to guaranteed magic pot. We have a golden sword rewarded for who42's strategic bonking.
Well, that's also interesting. I mean, it's not the hookshot that we want, but, you know, it's definitely nice to have that for Turtle Rock and Trinex. Ganon's Tower probably getting the most use out of it, but it's pretty likely that if Mijati finds, you know, hookshot, that we're just diving right into Ganon's Tower. So that could actually pay off later on.
That's right. We haven't checked Spiral Cave nor the Paradox Cave, so there is a wealth of potential here for who42. Let's see if it pays off for him, or if Mijati's ambitious dive into Turtle Rock pays off for him.
Well, nothing in Spiral, and Mijati did find Big Key at Chain Chomps, so there's a little bit of routing here. Well, he's going to probably still check the Big Key chest, because, I mean, I got to think you don't want to miss that hookshot at this point.
Absolutely. Everything is on the table until you get that hookshot, I would have to assume.
Well, so all of the stuff that we normally check about an hour ago, let's find out. And the wild thing about it is they've had access to this for a while. I mean, once they had Village of Outcasts, this was on the table.
And just some bombs and another 50 rupees in the first two chests. There's still another 5 in the floor above. Let's see if one of those 5 have what who42 is certainly in the mood for right now.
Well, moment of truth. Piece of heart, 20 rupees, big 20, big 20, big 20. What else? And a full heart container, half magic. I'm sure that's better than nothing at this point.
Small consolation, to be sure, but little more than that, I'm afraid. And who42, let's see him set up this bomb jump to avoid having to go back out to go. And very nicely done from who42. No stranger to bomb jumps is who42baker.
Yep, you just got to be on that bottom pixel, same way as the one Ice Palace one we were talking about before. So using some really good knowledge in the situation to save us some time. Heading back to Turtle Rock, it's looking very likely like Turtle Rock has it, but Mimic Cave actually looking pretty likely right now.
Yep, it very well could be Mimic Cave as well. And we're about to see Mijati check that here to see if that's indeed where the hook shot is located, or it could be another big 20 for all we know. We'll find out here momentarily.
Well, you always got to be careful in the event of a cave hooker. You got to be very careful not to, pick that up late. And actually, we would have had access to this for a while. I mean,
there it is.
Well then.
What you were saying about cave hookers?
You gotta be careful when you pick them up late. Late in the day, or late in the progress. I don't know. I really wasn't. Wow.
And there's Quake to boot.
Well, folks, if you wanted to see a nearly maxed out inventory, we still have a cape on the menu, but we're just about there. I don't know, maybe a little bit better than this being the Vanilla Flippers location, which I often find. Ooh, some nice bonks to get out of the way of some rollers here by Mijati. That was very nice.
Very nicely done. So that definitely puts Mijati in the lead here on his way to clearing Turtle Rock here. He will then have the go straight to Ganon's Tower. We'll see if who42baker can make up some of this this deficit that he now finds himself with.
Yeah, so that gives us an hour 31 minutes in. We have go mode finally. At nearly 100% besides hearts.
Such as V29. It's kind of surprising they don't have even more hearts and money to their name, given how much they've had to check here. But that's just the way this cookie has crumbled thus far. Mijati right on, about to encounter Trinex to get that 7th and final crystal.
Well, so, the interesting thing here is that, a butter sword and half magic advantage for who42baker. Mijati has to have, like, a really good-looking Ganon's Tower to not lose some time to that.
We shall see how it plays out, and their big key routing might come into play depending on how things come to pass in Ganon's Tower, but we'll get to that here momentarily. A very nice initial Trinex phase from Mijati thus far, getting that fire rod shot in before any ice could be spread on the floor.
Yeah, that's huge. It gets really hard to dodge the middle head once you have that ice on the floor, even with boots, which I recommend doing if you're going to try to dodge it. Dash through, that's the best way. But so far, very good Trinex fight. Just going to wrap it up with a couple extra hits here. Even gets the double spin. Well, I'm wondering, what does Trinex have for us today? The spicy volcano burrito.
Although I hear that Ganon prefers a barbacoa burrito, but that's neither here nor there at this point. Mijati will be on his way to Ganon's Tower. Meanwhile, who42 is about to powder some fairies there, get some health back, and will be who tried to catch a fairy. Unfortunately, got collected before they could get snagged.
Ooh, interesting side note about that, folks at home. If you're trying to catch a fairy that's being elusive, you can actually do an item dash with the net, the swag dash, and that automatically picks up any fairy you walk into while you're in that dash.
So at the 1 hour, 34-minute mark, Mijati activating the entrance to Ganon's Tower, watching those crystals spin around, and we'll see whether, given the opportunity, if he decides to follow through with the right side or goes left side. Either way, feel free to get your guesses in right now, any number between 1 and 22, to see which numbered chest Mijati finds the Ganon's Tower big key. I'm going to go with, let's go with a lucky number 7. What the heck?
I love Bob. Bob is life, so that would normally be 14, I believe.
All right, let's see if it's a multiple of 7 or elsewhere. First 2 chests checked and not a key to be found, so that means at least an initial dive to the left side for Mijati. Meanwhile, who42 finally picking up his hook shot in that Mimic Cave and will be in his go mode at 1 hour and 34 minutes and 50 seconds.
Well, it looks like having a burrito on the heat lamp there is going to keep Bob alive today. Very good find for Bob. Not so great for Mijati, but who42baker not too far behind, having checked Mimic Cave and received his hook shot. So he's also in go mode at 135. So about a 4-minute difference in go mode so far.
Nice crispy shell with that heat applied. Very, very tasty. I'm hungry now. Anyways, we've got Mijati getting some items that are not the big key, unfortunately. He will continue his left side perusal here. We are still on the lookout for that big key at this point. And luckily for Mijati, whether he realizes it or not, no routing decisions will cause any sort of a time loss, as both runners will need to follow this path, provided they don't decide to gamble with the right side check immediately after finding a small key. Mijati having a little bit of a tumble there, but there's the big key in the fire rod room there. Mijati will waste no time mirroring back to the entrance and begin his ascension towards the gauntlet of Ganon's Tower.
Yeah, having item number 8 being very early on in Ganon's Tower. Not only that, but Mijati has a small key to work with as well. We would normally have a couple of opportunities to grab some on the way up. Specifically, the mini Helmasaur is the one that we would want to have that key to skip. So depending on if they find an extra key in some of the chests that are up there, if they're going to check them, Mijati may actually check them not having Gold Sword. Who42 might not. So another little small time difference. So if Mijati has any trouble here with the gauntlet, this could be an opportunity for who42 to catch up with some of the time-saving decisions that are available to him.
And Mijati having some difficulty with those gorillas, manipulating them to get those silver arrows thoroughly deposited into their face. But Mijati is through and taking a few more hits from these spikes. I'm not sure what safety nets Mijati has, but he may need to start using one here. He is down to half a heart here.
Well, it seems like the sensible place to use a potion, but he may actually have a fairy. I don't know.
You see one empty bottle in his inventory. I'm not sure what else he has in possession. He is definitely going to go ahead and bonk over to these 2 fairies, though, to top off his health.
Yeah, very sensible choice. Even if you don't even catch one, you have an opportunity to powder before Lamolus, and if you don't do that, you still have a full heal with it. So, very smart heads-up decision to make here.
Well, I'm curious to see if that fall there was intentional to avoid having sword beams, or if that was just a slight movement error. Either way, he'll be happy to not have to worry about sword beams. He'll be able to do full damage with every swing, as he is on his way to completing this gauntlet. Meanwhile, who42baker dispatching him Trinex, getting his 7th crystal, and is en route to Ganon's Tower as well.
Yeah, and barring any really strange routing decisions, it should be chest number 8 for him. So he's not going to take long to get through. We're going to see an opportunity for him. He was 4 minutes apart on the go mode. We're going to see some of that time caught back up in some of these enemies that he doesn't have to work as hard to kill.
Whether it'll be 4 minutes gained is yet to be determined. Quite a tall order, but Mijati can certainly open the door potentially if he does not efficiently clear the remainder of this dungeon. Onto Landmo 2 now for Mijati.
Well, had pretty good silver arrow setup, but actually got trolled a little bit by the statue there. He has a fire shield, but just got hit in the wrong spot. We'll wrap it up in 2 cycles, though. Pretty good land move, too.
And who42 immediately going left, so if he follows through with this, that could lead with some minor savings right there, not foregoing those first 2 chests in the right side basement there. So little does he know that that's going to be to his benefit.
Yeah, that was the only time save available there. So very nice to see out of him. And not only that, but when Mijati here has taken a couple of heals, a little bit of safety strats. If you were to die anyway, I mean that's a long way to catch back up. So at this point it is Miyati's race to lose. There's not a whole lot of time save to be had in the rest of the tower compared to Tempered. Ganon, however, could be a little different depending on how comfortable Mijati feels with his Ganon fight.
Certainly, those Wizrobes giving Mijati a little bit of a trouble there, but Mijati is now through to light these 4 torches and will be on his way to the 6th floor of Ganon's tower. Meanwhile, who42 is unfortunately going to take as long as possible to get this big key, it appears.
I don't know if he walked away from that chest. That's frustrating to see for him because, I mean, he was in that room. He was ready to grab it. So he may have just, seen those chests and decided, you know what, I can check the other side. That's the statistically more likely spot at this point. That's rough, though.
Certainly giving Mijati a lot more room to work with as far as completing the seed ahead of who42. Who42 obviously has no way of knowing that that is indeed the case, but unfortunately it is going to be to his detriment here as Mijati is on his way to Moldorm 2.
And wow, we found the cape in the right side. So besides hearts, who42 basically had max inventory here.
It's a very little consolation, I'm sure, for who42.
Yeah, probably not going to be too happy about that.
Certainly
Vanilla
not.
20. I've been seeing a lot of big 20s in the vanilla spot there after Moldorm 2. I'm kind of surprised by that. I guess it makes sense for the progression logic, but you'd think you'd find something a little more trolly there more often.
Well, for my blood pressure's sake, I'm glad that that is not the case, at least in my experience so far. There is 28 big 20s to be had, so not uncommon for one to be there, I suppose. Aga 2 on the starting now for Mijati, getting 1 hit there.
Yeah, as you see the blue ball on his screen, the original Aghanim 2 here, the one that's real, has a 50-50 chance of giving you that blue ball attack. So we want to do 6 attacks total. If we have a good round, we'll get a triple in. Right now, Mijati's got a double on that one, so I believe he needs either 1 or 2 more left. Well, with that, we're going to make our way to Ganon at about 142. Mijati in a commanding position to take this 2-1 record shift.
Absolutely. It's going to take multiple falls, I think, at this point to get who42baker any shot. But we'll see if Mijati can take care of this in one go. Just the tempered sword, but that's more than enough with your silver arrows to dispatch Ganon in relative speed here. So we have who42baker retreating back to the left side here, while Mijati is taking the plunge and getting a Weetabix ad for his dive.
Yeah, this fight's pretty straightforward. With the Tempered Sword, we need to do 12 hits to Ganon in Phase 1 and Phase 2 individually. With Gold Sword, it would be 6. In Phase 3, no matter what sword you have, if you have Master Sword or above, you'll do 4 hits to finish that off. And then if you don't have silvers, you got to do quite a lot of sword spins. We have silvers, so it doesn't matter what sword we have for that level.
Yep, and slow. Burnicave causing quite the lag there with the fire bats, but Mijati will definitely go ahead and take that. Presumably will refill his magic, so he will be able to activate the torch glitch as well.
Could you imagine getting fanfare sniped because you used Burna and Ganon?
I'd rather not.
Like, I mean, how salty would that be? Anyway, no such situation here for Mijati, thankfully. Just got to focus on, nailing this down. Probably not going to worry too much about Torch Glitch, but he does have very low magic, so he could use a blue potion.
And he does, topping off his magic and his health, leaving little doubt in completing this final phase.
Big thing here is just make sure you don't get hit by that fire bat close to the edge. We only need 4 silver arrows, so we're just going to light these up real quick. Fire rod's perfectly fine. Don't got to worry about whether or not you have half magic in that scenario. And depending on position, we could get 2 arrows here.
And he does. Very nice double there from Mijati's one silver arrow shot. There it is. Gannon is down for Mijati, and that means Mijati will take this race and go to a 2-1 record at who42baker's expense, who will be at 1-2.
Yeah, GG's all around. This is a really impressive race to watch. Very interesting things happening between these racers and their routing decisions. But with that, Mijati does take the win with an official speed racing TV time of 1 hour, 44 minutes, and 10 seconds.
GG's to Mijati. A very well played, a well-deserved victory. And who42baker, right on his heels, will be completing Gannon's tower and Gannon proper in just a few minutes behind Mijati. So very nicely done by both of our runners. Congratulations once again to Mijati for the victory.
Well, we're hoping we can get him in for an interview. It should be about another 4 or 5 minutes of Gannon's tower. I think we can get him in. All right, looks like he will be joining us in just a moment. But so yeah, that's got to be an amazing feeling for Mijati here. I mean, this whole seed, there's so many crazy things going on. So I got to think that's a tough position to be in as a runner.
Absolutely, getting a full inventory. Multiple pendant dungeon checks. Now they were quick pendant dungeons, being Desert and Tower of Hera, but still doing all that, getting all this, and still completing with a sub 145 time. That is absolutely. We can see why Mijati is sporting his 2-1 record at this point.
Well, it looks like he's sitting in the waiting room for us, so I'm going to bring him in here. Mijati, GG, congratulations.
Yeah, GG. That was interesting to see, to say the least. Dungeons didn't seem to have a lot. Yeah, no, really happy to win that. I thought I was behind after where I found Hammer.
Yeah, that was a bit of a reluctant place to find it too. I mean, my instinct personally is to just go right into Thieves Town. So it was amazing that the two of you made that decision. Both of you did, to check the Bombable Hut first. Or not Bombable Hut, it was Chess Game.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, no, it makes sense at that point. I mean, I'm looking for Hammer or Boots to speed up Thieves Town, but yeah, no, I should have gone there instead of Skullwoods. But I was gambling on something being in Pod, because I'd already skipped Eastern. I was planning to route that in when I go to Pod, because I had Mirror early on. So I should have full North Dark World into Pod, and then figured I'd find Hammer that way. But so I lost a little time not going straight to Thieves Town and Villager Outcast, but yeah, went well, I guess.
Absolutely. It did cause a double dip into Pod, but no issue there for you. Very nicely done, and a very nice time considering the seed. So once again, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it felt like a good run. Getting the going to Agina's cave early, I think, paid off. I was very tempted to leave and go to Kakariko, but I thought there's nothing in Dam, there was nothing in the mini Moldon cave, there was nothing in Ice Sword cave, so something has to be in Agina's cave, and thankfully there was. And yeah, the decision not to do Eastern straight away paid off, and yeah, managed to get flippers and just followed the trail from there.
Well, that was a distinct difference between the way that you and who42baker routed this run. Who42 relied on quite a few dark rooms and sequence breaks, and that actually did allow him to do Palace of Darkness in one go, which was an opportunity for him to catch up. Right now he's in Aghanim 2, so I mean, you guys are very close together.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because as soon as I got gloves, I decided to do Kakariko from south, so I could route in Death Mountain as well, which paid off getting the Fire Rod early, which I was pleased with. And then obviously Hera had absolutely nothing. Then I wasted time in Desert, which had absolutely nothing. The Eastern had absolutely nothing. The Pod had absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you two are practically neck and neck with each other, doing the exact same dungeons, going into Ice Palace relatively similarly. Right after Meyer, you were both practically in relative lockstep with each other. Really, what sealed the deal was you dived into Turtle Rock, whereas who42baker elected to save that, checking all of the Light World Eastern Death Mountain locations prior to his Turtle Rock dive, and that really caused that separation that ended up being the relative difference in the end here.
Yeah, I decided to gamble Ice Palace not having hook shot, which thankfully paid off. Just checking the convenient chest to check on the way just in case. But then when I got to Turtle Rock, I'm like, haven't checked any of East Death Mountain. Full clearing Turtle Rock is not much slower than go moding it, so I'm going to check every chest anyway, so I'll do Death Mountain stuff afterwards. And if I go GT and quickly get hookshot blocked, then it's not far out to go back and go do Death Mountain stuff. So I was always going to leave that till after I checked GT.
Well, do you care to guess where the gold sword was?
Probably Hookshot Cave.
Nice. Red, it was spot on too. It was the bonkable one too.
Yeah, that wouldn't have saved me any time. So yeah, glad I didn't go for that then.
Yeah, and it looks like on your screen we're also seeing that the pocket change sleeps again forever. We had nobody take that book to check the pedestal, but both of you did check both tablets, which was interesting to see.
I was very tempted to check pedestal after I did bonk rocks and things. Can't remember. I think I had book at that point. I remember being in that area with book. I was very tempted to check it, but I think at that point I only needed ice rod and hook shot, and I'm not going to bother checking pedestal. Was tempted though.
Well, with that, who42baker just finished up a Ganon fight very quickly. I mean, with that gold sword, he is just, cutting right through him. So even getting the torch glitch, which was unnecessary, but who42 is going to finish up with a, looks like an official speed racing TV time of 1 hour, 50 minutes, and 28 seconds. So just over 6 minute difference between the two of you. We'll see if we can get him in for an interview.
Yeah, GG to him.
Absolutely. Yeah, that 6 minute difference in the end does not really tell the tale. This was a very close race for the majority of it. Again, that slight deviation and the very wise decision to go ahead and make the dive into TR. There was a little bit of a difference in your Ganon's tower routing, which really was to who42's detriment, unfortunately. But once again, you guys were really on top of each other for the majority of it. There was some divergence there in the early game, but that search for the hook shot, you guys were practically right on each other's heels. It was very exciting to watch. It was a pleasure to be here on the commentator's desk for it.
Yeah, looking forward to watching the VOD. And yeah, I felt a bit behind. I thought, sort of going into when I found the hook shot, I was relieved. I felt okay. I feel okay now. If I'm behind, it's only by a minute or two at most. So thankfully, yeah, that paid off.
Yeah, especially that in the early game, not having the benefit of getting a bomb in the Hyrule Castle as well. Very impressive to not let that get to you, and especially learning of the contents of that of those chests must have certainly not have been a good sight there in the early stages.
Yeah, no, I knew there were 3 items there. I should have gone as soon as I got gloves, but I forgot until I was about to head to East, and then wait a minute, I have gloves. So yeah, and when I saw the 3 items in that chest, I'm like, that's not good. Hopefully my opponent didn't get a bomb.
And it was interesting because, when he got the bomb and ended up finding that glove, it took him very long to go check, Agina's cave where you found yours. So we were in this weird limbo where both of, you had the opportunity with these relatively low sphere in logic item checks to go all kinds of places with Titan's mitts. And it actually turned out that was kind of how it was supposed to proceed progression-wise. So it took both of you guys a while to kind of get to the same spot, but you ended up getting there around the same time. It's kind of interesting to watch.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely looking forward to watching the VOD. But yeah, it was a really fun seed, I think. Boots came at a decent time, not too early. And yeah, early mirror is always nice because it means you can route Dark World more efficiently, which is what I did, which thankfully didn't hold me back by not checking Eastern early, for example. But yeah.
Yep, and another factor as well is you checking Meyer when you did, getting your flippers, which allowed you to route Eastern Dark World much more efficiently. I feel immediately after checking Graveyard Ledge, and thus allowing you to get Catfish, get Pyramid on your way to your initial pod visit. who42 did not have the benefit of having the flippers at that point. It took him a while to eventually check Meyer, so that could have also played a pretty significant role in how this turned out.
I probably would have been better off without flippers, to be honest, because that would have mean I would have gone Thieves Town earlier, got the hammer earlier, and found Boots earlier, so probably would have been actually quicker if I didn't go Mile when I did, but useful information to get.
It was kind of interesting because, I mean, the lamp was in Waterfall Cave, so who42baker really early in the run actually attempted a fake flipper to get there, probably like 15, 20 minutes in, and got hugged by a Zora before getting to that cave for the water walk. So that could have been an interesting development because who42baker did do all the dark rooms of Palace of Darkness and full cleared it.
Yeah, no, I was worried when I found the lamp. I was worried about fake flippers, but at that point I hadn't done anything with Lantern anyway. All it meant was my hookshot was now in Logic, and I'd have an easier time with Eastern and Pod, but wasn't too worried about them. If I had to do them Dark Room, I'd do them Dark Room.
It appears we are now joined by who42baker. Who42, very well done, albeit in a losing effort. GG's, and congratulations on completing the seed.
Hey, thanks. Congrats to Mijati finishing that faster.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, GG to you. It looks like it was a fun race.
I had fun. I love racing.
Yeah, no, I did as well. Yeah, my last race was just, I can't, there were no good words to describe my last race, but this race I think went really well. It was a really fun seed, really interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it was a wild ride for us. At an hour and 50 minutes to have basically full menu. I mean, we're missing some heart pieces.
Yeah, I think so. That's about it.
So the two of you put on a fantastic show. I mean, it was amazing to commentate because you made very different decisions at different times. We were talking about this with Mijati just a moment ago. But the difference between when the two of you found your Titans mitts, you found them in different places because of where you ended up heading. The first one, I believe, was in the back of Sahazra's hut. Was that right?
I think that's where I've got my first glove, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, both of you had the Titans mitts available to you relatively early on. It was a very low sphere in the logic. So it was very, very interesting in coincidence to see the two of you converge around the same time.
Okay. I was worried that the early Eastern play wasn't going to work out, but I got the gloves. But then making my way to Agnes Cave, I think that was the very last thing I could do. I kind of knew something progression-wise was going to be there.
And it seemed kind of like, you did a fantastic Palace of Darkness in the dark. That was kind of incredible, but to find the lamp right after, I mean, what was going through your head at that point?
I was a little annoyed because I had attempted to fake flipper earlier, and I died to the Zora there, and when I got the lamp there, I'm thinking, where are flippers? Flippers must have been somewhere accessible, and then I found the flippers in the mire shed. And I'm like, all right, that's just a stupid progression to have. And that's why I never want lamp or flippers. Because I just don't like the progression that leads to lamp. Because the logic always wants you to double dip things. And I just don't like that.
Well, the two of you definitely put on an incredible race for us. Looking at how fast this was done, I mean, sure, we're looking at 1-2 and 2-1 respectively, but honestly, both of you are fierce contenders in this, Swiss round. I personally, I just completed one today at 2.5 hours, and that got me one win. I mean, I got to think that, as this tournament progresses, a lot of folks will kind of get, sifted out compared to, I would say, the very strong performance that we saw from both of you today. I would definitely not want to find you in the next round, Who42, so that is a possibility for me. I'm a little nervous about that.
I'm worried about next round too, because that's going to be me fighting for my tournament life. Because after that, I'm kind of killed for if I'm going to progress to brackets.
Yeah, it's a little added pressure being on a elimination point, if you will. But I don't see any reason why you can't pull out a decent run here. Hopefully, I won't have to be concerned about facing you in the next round, but I've still got my week 3 match in the cards Saturday morning, so we'll see how that goes. But very nicely done from the both of you once again, falling to 1 and 2. But once again, you're still alive, and a reason why a 4-game winning streak can happen for you. So best of luck in that, and Mijati will have will rise up to 2 and 1, be in a little bit more comfortable position, but still 4 weeks to go. Anything can happen. And
of course, the competition only gets more heated up as our all of our tournament participants become even more and more sharpened to the version 29 logic. And of course, there is the possibility of a new logic update at some point during the tournament as well. Definitely a fantastic race to watch. I'm sure all of our audience agrees. So, folks, I think the best thing you can do to support these runners, and I think they've definitely earned it, give them a follow. You know, these folks are going to be racing quite a lot more in this tournament. There's a lot of randomizer left. And, you know, for the quality of the performance I saw today, I definitely want to see more. So, you know, give them a follow. Check them out, you know, when they're running other games as well. And they'll definitely be making more appearances in this tournament.
Absolutely. And I also want to go ahead and give a shout out to our tracker, Carissa. Thank you very much for keeping on top of the items for us. And to our restreamer, Synac, thanks very much for your services as well. I'll go ahead and offer the floor to you guys for any final comments or thoughts before we go ahead and wrap this up for this evening.
Yeah, just want to thank you both for commentating and restreaming and tracking as well. But yeah, CCC shout out, especially to Gazelle Shaft, because everything I know is because of her. So yeah, thanks to her. Yeah, no, that was a fun scene. Yeah, GG, but Baker, hopefully you have a win next round.
Thanks. Grats to you, man. Thanks for the restream. That was cool. I look forward to watching this back and seeing how we both played. I always love that part, getting to watch the race back. So it's always cool when there's a restream.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree. Very much looking forward to watching the VOD.
Well, it's definitely exciting on our end, and I just want to echo the same sentiments that all three of you have shared. Obviously, don't want to redouble all of them in the same words, but and I also want to add a thanks as well to the audience. Thank you for tuning in to check out this randomizer action. Plenty more to come. So I think with that, we should probably wrap things up. I've been Eudaimonistic, and I was joined by...
This is CDV. Thanks again, guys, for joining, and you all have a good night or a good afternoon, wherever you may find yourselves.
See you next mission.